Hi, and welcome to Keep the Beat, Mix and Master with Tableau Pulse. If you're watching this, we probably missed you at TC, so we are going to be doing a virtual walkthrough of what our hands-on training session looked like at TC24. And you're probably wondering who we are. So we were the label execs of this hands-on training session. My name is Jordan Buffet. I'm a solution engineer here at Tableau. I've been with the company for about 3 years now, but I've been part of the greater data fam for about 7 years now. I'm based out of Seattle, Washington, where I love to do the typical activities you might hear about, like hiking with my partner and my dog, going out to eat, and just exploring the Pacific Northwest. Since this was a music themed session, I talked a little bit about my last festival I went to, which was Austin City Limits. I got to see my favorite artist, Noah Kahn, there. And then up on the left-hand side, you can just see a really cool sunset that I saw recently in Seattle. And I'm going to pass it over to my co-label exec to introduce himself.
Nice. I'm Jacob or Jake Zitko. I'm coming to you from Chicago here, and I've got a few photos of my favorite bands of, well, one being the best band ever of Blink-182, and then I've got a actual little photo of me there at a concert put on by Salesforce with Demi Lovato, and actually Jordan was able to join me at that concert. And I've been here for about 5 years, and it's been all a great data and analytics ride while I've been here. So now we're going to talk a little bit about who you are here at our in our session.
Yeah, so when we were designing this session, it is a beginner level session. So we were designing it with the idea that Pulse is so new to the market that everyone's just bringing a beginner's mindset. So whether you're new to the data fam, just beginning your Tableau journey, or you've been part of the data fam for the last 20 years, we really believe that everyone could get something out of this hands-on training session, whether you were in the room with us or just watching this virtual walkthrough. Okay, so now that we've introduced ourselves and talked a little bit about y'all, let's walk through the agenda for our TC24 hot session and what we went through during our session. So first, we went through a rehearsal to make sure that we were set up for a successful session. Then we met Tableau Pulse, Tableau's newest artist, before we jumped into creating our own Pulse metrics and really beginning to mix and master our own data tracks. Then we moved into creating our own playlist by publishing up a data source and creating our own metric off of that before we moved into an Encore section. And so without further ado, let's jump in. First, let's go through our housekeeping, a little bit of housekeeping for this virtual session. The first thing is a forward-looking statement, a lot of legal jargon that basically asks that you make your purchasing decisions based on what is currently available in the product and not anything that is roadmapped. And also just thank you. Thank you for spending time with us here today watching this session. Thank you for attending TC with any parts that you did. We're just so grateful for you, Data Fam. And so let's meet Tableau Pulse, our first section of today's virtual session. And so as we go through this, we want you to channel your inner emerging artist. As an emerging artist, you are interested in really connecting with your fans intentionally and making data-driven decisions. And so, you know, many of y'all have been a part of the data fam for a really long time, and you've probably noticed that the old metrics and as data have disappeared. Well, the old metrics and as data can't come to the phone right now. Why? Because they're dead, said by a fellow Swiftie. But with that, let's meet Tableau Pulse. So Tableau Pulse is Tableau's newest product that is intended to be personalized, contextual, and intelligent, bringing all the data you care about in one single place. Tableau Pulse is also intended to be so easy to use that you could digest what's going on in your business before your first cup of caffeine in the morning or whatever gets your brain up and running on all cylinders. So let's dive into a little bit more about what this looks like. And so Tableau Pulse is intended to deliver personalized and intuitive experiences. So at the top, you're greeted with a generative AI summary of what's happening across your business. Again, intended to be so easy to use that you can immediately understand what's going on like that. Then we have all of our metric cards. So if you've digested a dashboard or created a dashboard sometime in the last year, 20 years, what have you, you've probably utilized KPIs or bands at the top of your dashboard to give those summarized important key metrics, right? So Prior to Pulse, I was going to about 5 different dashboards to gather all of my KPIs that I needed to use to answer the questions that my boss was asking. Now with metric cards, I can bring them all in one singleized place within Pulse, giving me a single source of truth. That way I can get a quick understanding of what's happening within my own metrics. And if I need to dive deeper, that's when I can go into a dashboard or start diving into my data with drag and drop functionality. Then at the bottom, you're going to notice conversational insights of each at the edge of each metric card. So you can understand what's happening, why it's happening, and what to do next with natural language insights. And so let's dive into a Pulse metric card a bit more. So at the top, you're going to notice a time period. So this is your time horizon, what that number is being aggregated to. This is a changeable format, so you can do also currency or percentage. And then you'll notice under that KPI, the spark line. So you can see a little glance at how that KPI has been trending over that time period. And then at the bottom, the trend. So a quick description of what kind of trend or volatility is happening within that metric. And so once we click into the metric card, we're brought to that home page. Again, we're going to see the metric and the time horizon, as well as get a little bit more information about the expected range of the metric value. Is it operating as normal? Then below the metric, we can begin seeing those prompted first level questions. We even have the ability to start asking our own questions and then notice the trends and outliers for that metric value if it's acting unusually. And so now that we've talked a little bit about what Pulse is, let's talk about why it was created and the different analytics user experiences that Tableau offers within our platform. And so for the last 20 years or so, we've been known for our exploratory analytics, our drag and drop functionality, taking human interaction and building out beautiful charts, translating all of that on the back end for you. This allows you to uncover insights into your data. Then we wanted to take it a step further. We wanted to build multiple charts and begin to see relationships between different pieces of data, drill down even deeper into our data to uncover those insights. Now with glance analytics, that's going to be your first stop within your day, so that you can glance immediately to get an idea of what's happening in your business. So whether you're walking to work, maybe you take a bus or the train, my only ask is that you don't use this while you're driving because it's basically texting and driving. But again, glancing at your phone to understand what's going on with your day. It could be your phone, it could be a desktop application, really wherever you are in your data journey and in your flow of work. And so now during the hands-on training session at TC, we jumped into exercise 1. I will be doing a demo of this so that you can see what we did during the session. And so again, we channeled our inner emerging artists because we wanted to use data to connect intentionally with our fans. We explored artist data through Tableau Pulse, discovering who our fans are, where they're located, which songs are really popular with them, so that we can define our marketing and our engagement strategies. And so we're about to jump into our first demo of this virtual session, but before we do, let's take a look at all of the different clues that we provided to you during the scavenger hunt. So there were 5 different clues that utilizing the metrics within Tableau Pulse, you would be able to answer. And we also created a form to help track the answers when we were live in the session. And so let's jump into Tableau Pulse now. And so initially we logged into our Tableau Cloud environment. And if you've been here, let's go ahead and expand this. You'll notice that Tableau Pulse is now in our home bar. Clicking on Tableau Pulse, we're brought to our home page. We're greeted with that conversational or that generative AI summary rather. And then we have the metric cards that I am already following. And so for this first one, let's jump into streams. And so we can see the time horizon and month to date. We can see that KPI number. We can see how it's trending with that conversational insight. And then down here, we can see our different questions as well as some breakdown. And so that first one was about when did a new trend start? So luckily we're prompted with that first question. We can go ahead and click it. And Tableau is calling out a new trend on May 2nd. And so that would have been the answer to the first clue of the scavenger hunt. Now, we want to know which song had the highest streams. And so I could easily ask a question, or I could come to our breakdown tab. and come to song title. And I could see that Cashing Starlight is our highest streamed song of the month. And so that would have been the answer to number 2. Now, number 3 asks about where your listeners are growing the most. And so we can come to audience growth to help that breakdown. Again, coming into the breakdown tab or using the questions at the bottom, we can see that California is where our audience is growing the most this month. Now, for the last one, there's a couple of different ways that you could find, or rather not the last one, but the second to last one. You could either browse for the metrics using this tab, or you could come up here and search for number of shares or likes. So for that first one, we want to look at number of likes, and I'll come to my admin metric. And so I can see, again, number of likes over that time range, and I can come to breakdown. And so I wanted to know which platform was the most popular, and I can see that TikTok is. Now, I also wanted to know about shares. So I can easily just replace likes for shares and come on here, and I'll be greeted with this. And so again, I can come down to the breakdown tab, or I can come down here and start looking at the prompted questions. But for this, I just need to know that TikTok was where we shared the most. And if I wanted to follow this metric, I could easily follow it. And as I come back to my Pulse homepage, I will see that I am now following number of shares in my single source of truth. Now, for this last one, we wanted to know how influencers were engaging with our content. So we'll come up here and search influencer engagement. Again, going to my admin metric. And I wanted to know the first 2 words of the content post that resonated the most with our fans. And so coming here, I can come to content, and the whole thing says Cashing Starlight is soaring into your mental space. But for the answer really is just Cashing Starlight. And so now that I can follow this one as well, I'll come back to my homepage and notice the 4 metrics that I care about. I could have followed number of likes as well, but again, this is supposed to be personalized to me. So this is what I wanted to follow. And so coming back, let's review section 1 and the key takeaways that we wanted y'all to have. And so the first is Tableau Pulse is a reimagined data experience for our business users that will empower everyone across your business to keep the beat on their business with smart, personalized, and contextual insights infused directly into their flow of work. It's going to keep all of your important metrics in one place, giving you a single source of truth and enabling glance analytics so that you can quickly make a decision. And then by the end of this, you are a master of scavenger hunts. And so that wraps up section 1. I'm going to hand it over to my co-label exec, Jake, to take us away on sections 2.
All right, great. Thank you, Jordan, and thank you for showing us around Tableau Pulse and showing us metrics and insights from that emerging artist's lens. It was really cool to see how an emerging artist could use the metrics and insights to just get an understanding of their audience engagement overall. And I hope that our audience was engaged and interested in that bit of a use case understanding, but maybe they hopefully didn't get too attached because we're about to move on. We're going to make a bit of a career change and switch it up from an emerging artist into a music producer. As a music producer, you're going to have a little bit more to do with data. You're not going to just need to interact with and thumb around already existing Tableau Pulse metrics. What you're going to need to do is actually also create some new metrics and make adjustments and filter them so that you can run your business and understand a bit more about what's happening across your different artists and in their respective genres and so on and so forth. You're still going to be using all of the same things and great information that you were as an emerging artist. You're going to be creating metrics and understanding their expected range, see spark lines to get a visual, and be able to ask questions and see the trends and outliers. But what if you would like to dive a little bit deeper or filter a metric to see it in a specific or a certain way? Well, we do have options, or you do have the ability to create adjustments, and you can do this via adjustable metric filters. These are all things that we're going to learn about and create as music producers and interact with in order to create some related metrics altogether. Before we do, we need to understand the requirements or the pieces that you need on Tableau Cloud in order to use Tableau Pulse. What you need on Tableau Cloud is a published data source. This could be either a live, extract, bridge, or even a virtual connection. And within this data source, you at least need one measure, a time dimension, and at least one filter dimension. And each of these things and all of these things together are going to be what we use to create our top level metric definitions and collections of related metrics. The metric definition is the top level of the hierarchy. It is the definition of the measure and the aggregation, and this is where you're deciding how much time and the fields in which you're going to be aggregating up to. And from here, you're going to be creating the metrics. These are the things that we've been seeing and interacting and understanding as emerging artists and what we've been looking at so far. This has the metric value. These are the spark lines. This is the follow-up questions, all of the generated insights, so on and so forth. But as you make adjustments and as you would like to filter these, what you're going to end up with are collections of related metrics. A related metric is created anytime an adjustment to a metric is accepted. And related metrics cannot be duplicated. So you'll see as you interact with and as your users need to see their metrics in new ways, you'll have a whole collection of related metrics on your site related to that initial metric definition. And so this is what I'm going to be showing you a little bit of today as a music producer. I'm going to be not only adjusting or creating and working through metrics that exist, but I'm going to be then adjusting them, making sure that I'm able to slice and dice and create my own versions and an entire digest that I need to see as a music producer to understand my business. So what I'm going to be doing is analyzing my spend across all of my different artists and projects using a data set that's already published up onto Tableau Cloud. And I'm going to develop different metrics to monitor and optimize the production, investments, the spend, so on and so forth across my music industry. So let me show you what that looks like. All right. Great. So now we're going to use Pulse a little bit more. We're not going to just click around and interact with already existing metrics that we are following. We're going to actually create a metric as a music producer. And the first thing that we're going to do is go back into Tableau Pulse. I'm going to unfollow any of the old metrics that I needed in my old career as an emerging artist. Now, I'm going to set up some new metric definitions from a data source that I already have published on my site. I'm going to use this music production details dataset to create a few new metrics. The first thing that I'm going to do is find the measure that I actually would like to use as my metric field, the aggregated number, the actual number that Tableau Pulse is going to be monitoring. And I'm going to create one for spend. And what this number is going to represent is all of the spend that I am, or all of the money that I am spending across all of the artists in the different genres and across all of the different places that I am producing music. And so what I want to do is make sure that I'm keeping track of this metric over my date field time. I could decide to change the periods in which it's compared to, and I can even spend some time if I needed to adding some calculations into my data set so that I could see the metrics the way that I need to. But for now, I'm really going to keep it simple. I'm just wanting to take a look at spend over time. And now I get to one of the most important decisions when it comes to creating a new metric. As a music producer, I'm going to want to be able to filter, slice and dice, change the metric and see it in different ways. And that's going to come from all of the different adjustable metric filters that you add to a metric. And this is going to, as you see, as I click on my new and add new adjustable metrics filters, they're added underneath the metric name. And as I keep clicking and adding new ones apply, because these will become the decisions, the choices that your viewers, the people that you're allowing to follow these metrics, to interact with and change so that they can, one, filter this the way that they need to, or two, ask follow-up questions based off of the adjustable metrics filters that you include. So now that I've added all of the different ways that I would like to slice and filter this metric, I'm going to change the number format to currency because spend is money. And spend going up is actually an unfavorable thing for me. Obviously, I would like to spend the least amount as possible and make the most amount of money. So taking a look at what I have to do or the options I have within my Insights tabs here, it's really only the ability to determine whether or not the value going up is favorable or unfavorable. And then I have the ability here to change and turn off some insight types if I would like to. If I know, something like I don't care about and don't need any insights about bottom contributors, I can actually go in and turn those off so Tableau Pulse isn't notifying me about those. But for right now, I just want to know everything that's going on with this metric. So I'm going to just save the definition with all of my insight types turned on. And there I go. Very quickly, I was able to create a spend metric, and now I have the ability to follow this, add this to my followed metrics. I could follow or add other users based off their username or their group. And here I can finally then get into asking questions, viewing insights, understanding a bit more about my spend as a music producer. Now that I've created the spend metric, let's make an adjustment so that I can see spend sliced or filtered in a little bit of a different way, yet still follow and keep track of it so that I can have that delivered to my inbox or my Slack, and then also be able to look into the details of my specific adjustment and ask very specific questions. So what I can do is go in and click on the adjustment or adjust button, and let's say I wanted to do something like only take a look at my Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter campaigns within the indie genre. I'm specifically interested in how much I'm spending in indie and across the most popular social media platforms. And so I can make that adjustment, click the blue check mark, and you'll notice one thing. I'm not following this anymore because of its new related metric. And what I can do now is follow this so that I can have this in my digest and get updates on this every day. But then also I can ask some follow-up questions and be tracking this as I would like to see it. I don't need to be taking a look at all of the spend information. Now that I'm following both of my spend metrics, if I go back to my following metrics, you'll see them both here. And that was great. I now have two metrics as they relate to spend, and that was pretty quick. So let's make one more from this data set that I have available to me. Let's go on and connect to that data set again. And this time, let's actually do something for reach. Reach is going to be the audience that I've actually been able to engage with the different marketing campaigns or music videos or whatever initiatives that I've been putting out from all of the different music producing details and data that I have here available to me. And what I'm interested in is not necessarily a running total, but how my engagement and reach is stacking up each day. So I'm going to change that spark line to non-cumulative. And I'm not going to add every single one of my different adjustable metric filters here. Since this is reach and audience related, I'm really going to only add the information specific to my audience. And I'm going to save. And now I've got two different metrics, three in total, one that is just a metric and a related metric, and then a new metric for reach, here to help me understand and keep track of these top level metrics and the insights as they relate to all of these metrics. I've now started my career, or I know that my career as a music producer is off to a great beginning because of how data driven I can be. All right, and now we are back after I've just shown you exercise 2. Really, what we were able to do as music producers is go in, locate a data source that was published to a folder already on Tableau Cloud for us, and we created a new Tableau Pulse metric for spend. I also went through and created an adjustment for that metric so that I could have a related metric in a specific way that I wanted to see spend, and I also had a little extra time, so I've created another metric for us today. I hope that we can take the information that I shared and apply it to your own metrics and the ideas you may have for your business, but also as a key takeaway from this second section in exercise 2, and it's that when you're creating metric definitions, those are the top level of metric configuration. From those, you create collections of related metrics that are filtered subtypes of that top metric definition. Your exploratory users can go in and take a look at all of the metrics and related metrics to derive insights from the insights layer and details page for each of the related metrics. And having a collection of certified data sources to use with metrics on Tableau Pulse is the most ideal way to work and allow your users to work with Tableau Pulse. We're going to be talking more about data sources in exercise 3, but overall, just know having more published data sources means you're going to get more value. So now we're going to move on to our final exercise and our final role. So we've already been emerging artists using Pulse and metrics to keep track of our audience and our engagement. And then we moved on to being music producers, where the demand and need to work with our data grew a little bit. And instead of just interacting with existing metrics, we created and adjusted a few. Well, now we're going to take on our third and final role within the music industry. And in this role, we are going to be data fest planners. So think of a person who is planning festivals. And we're going to need to do even more with our data, not just create some metrics off of some existing published data sources. Here, we're going to actually have to publish a data source ourselves and then use what we've learned as emerging artists and as music producers into our planning of festival and our need to start all the way at the beginning of the process. And that process all starts with data. And in order to create Tableau Pulse metric, we've already talked about how you need to publish data source. And that can be live, extract, bridge, or even a virtual connection. But there are some other things or ways that you should shape your data for them to work best with Pulse. And here's a bit of an introduction. I'll go into a little bit of more detail in a moment, but it is best, Tableau Pulse works best when the data changes regularly. When the data is granular without any pre-aggregation, when it's current, and it needs to contain at least one date field. The column names need to be meaningful, can't just be zeros and ones. And the best type of data for Pulse is tabular data. I'll get into a little bit more detail about that in a few slides, but there are some other really important decisions that you need to make when you're configuring your published data sources. The first one is that whether or not you would like the data source to be live or an extract. And this is an important concept to Tableau. If you've been working with us for a while, you may have seen these or may have already made these decisions in your other data sources or in your other workbooks. But a live data source connects directly to the source and displays current data in real time. Every time you make a change to a data source, or sorry, to a workbook connected to a live data source, it queries that source itself, and you get new up-to-date data. But you can also connect to data as an extract, and this means that it's a snapshot taken from that source and loaded into Tableau. We normally see some faster performance with extracts, but overall, both of those are great ways to remain connected to your data. The other options that you have when connecting to data is as a published data source or embedded. Published data sources are uploaded and managed separately from their workbooks on Tableau Cloud, and this can also be done on Tableau Server. What this means is if you've published a data source, it can be accessed by multiple workbooks, and in this case, by Tableau Pulse. The other option that you have when publishing data sources is embedded within a workbook. This means that it's specifically attached to the Tableau workbook that it is within. And we really see the use case for these best when people need to collaborate and share dashboards and work across teams on one dashboard. But in this case, and for use with Tableau Pulse, you cannot use an embedded data source. Truly, this brings us to the only requirement of Pulse, that it needs to be a published data source. And to illustrate that and really drive that home, there are places and times and places for published and embedded data sources. There's time and a place for a live and an extract. There's pros and cons of each. But in this case, and for Pulse, you cannot work with an embedded data source. It needs to be published. And again, remember, that could be live extract, it can be a bridge connection, it can be a virtual connection. And to get into more detail about the optimal data scenario, I've mentioned these things a little bit already, but to really dive in a bit more, the data changing frequently means that the daily data is ideal. And again, not aggregated, so it needs to be granular, touching on the first two on the left-hand side at the same time here. If it's daily data, weekly data can work, but the more that it changes, the better. And if it's granular and daily, then you're going to have very deep analysis coming from Tableau Pulse. You're going to get better insights, you're going to get better questions, and a better understanding of what's happening to that metric. The data needs to be current. So large historical data sets aren't going to be the best because a Tableau Pulse metric is being kept over time as it relates to today. And in order for you to see these daily insights, you need that daily data. And then finally, your data source, the data that you're working with Pulse, needs to contain key dimensions, things to actually appropriately or usefully filter the metric by. So as long as you have data or dimensions within the data source that you would like to filter your metric by, that is a better or best practice. And so what I'm going to do now is show you what publishing up a data source for use with Tableau Pulse looks like. And I'm going to show you just one way. There are multiple ways to publish up a data source, and we have plenty of different resources for teaching you on how to do so. But for now, let me show you how we're going to do that today as the DataFest Planner. What we're going to do as a DataFest Planner is utilize new data. So we're going to publish up a data source, and then we're going to create metrics from that data source and explore some of that data source. We're going to be using what we've learned as emerging artists and as music producers in our DataFest planning role. And so we are going to jump right into it. Let me show you what that looks like. All right, so now as we take yet another even more data intensive role within the festival planner and the DataFest planner here, you are going to be needing to do even more with Tableau Cloud and within publishing a data source in order to then use the rest of what we've learned as emerging artists and as music producers to create new metrics. So far, we've been working from either already created metrics or an already published data source. And now what you're going to need to do as this festival planner is use some of the data that you've collected and have on your computer after uploading that to then create a new metric for yourself. So in order to do so, what you're going to need to do is go back into Tableau Cloud. So all of the work we've been doing so far has been from within Tableau Pulse. But we can navigate back to Tableau Cloud by clicking into the main menu from the top left here. And once you're back into Tableau Cloud, where all of your content sits, you can go and click on Explore from the main menu. And you could navigate into other folders if you'd like to, but I like to just go into New and Publish Data Source from here. Now, if you've been working with Tableau for a while, if you've had a creator license and have had access to Tableau Cloud and Tableau Prep in the past, or even now, you may be more familiar with publishing data sources up to Tableau Cloud via those tools. And it's very likely then if you've had access to those tools, you would not have used the web UI. And we're really only using that today in order to make this as easy and as streamlined and easy to show off as possible. It is still perfectly fine to be publishing up from Tableau Prep or Tableau Desktop, but here it is good to note that you have the ability to connect to, files that are just locally on your computer, but also a whole bunch of our connectable cloud locations via our already existing connectors. And finally, we even have accelerators here. So if you're specifically connecting to certain data sources, something like Salesforce with structured data in the background, we can help you get up and running very quickly. But for our demonstration with Pulse today, I'm just going to upload a file from my computer, and it's just going to be some data for me to publish to my Tableau Cloud site. Once I've chosen my upload, I can see a bit of a description where I see my dimensions and measures on the left-hand side here. This is showing me or describing the different fields that I would have to work with as I publish this data source, and this is the information or the fields that I'll choose from when setting up my metrics. So I'm going to publish this into my folder that I have for myself here. And once complete, I have the ingredients or I have the necessary items in order for me to then jump back into Tableau Pulse and create a new metric for myself. So let me navigate back into Tableau Cloud. Then you'll find Tableau Pulse in the main menu directly underneath Explore, where you would have gone previously to publish that data source. And now that I'm back in Tableau Pulse, let's create that new metric from that newly published data source. Now that I click New Metric Definition, I'll see that vendor and sponsor ROI data source that I've just published up. And we're going to choose the type of metric that we're going to create here, and it's going to be an investment metric. And let's go through all of what we've learned in the other two exercises as emerging artists and music producers to create an investment metric. Let's see what the investments I'm making to my vendors and sponsors over time. Let's see that as a non-cumulative spark line. I'd like to see visually represented more so how much I'm paying day for day rather than seeing it all rolled up together. And here I'm going to add, I see actually in this data source that I have for myself, I have a ton of adjustable metric filters. And so I didn't seem to have a lot of different measures to take a look at. So it seems like this is a good data source to add a lot of different adjustable metric filters to see the very few measures that I have to aggregate up in a bunch of different ways. So I'm going to just spend some time here to click through and add a whole bunch of adjustable metric filters here for the different vendor and sponsor ROI data. And now this is an investment. So this is a currency. This is an amount of money that I'm investing in my vendors and sponsors. And going up, I don't want to be spending money. Very similar to when I was a music producer, creating a spend metric. My investment going down is better for me. I am spending less money. Less money is going out the door. So we're going to change that to unfavorable. And there I've created a brand new data set for myself. I have something going on that I need to take a look at versus the prior year, but overall I've been able to very quickly publish a data source and then even create a new metric from that published data source. And it's very simple. You could see how I could go back and create a whole bunch of other versions of this metric, or how you could see that I had even other measures or a few other measures to work from that data source. And that was just one data source. I would be able to publish any amount of data sources up to Tableau Cloud and create metrics from them. It is all about publishing up a data source to work with Tableau Pulse. All right, so now we're back from me showing you exercise 3. And in exercise 3, we took Tableau Cloud and we used it to publish up a new data source to our Tableau Cloud site. And it was for use with creation of a Tableau Pulse metric for investment. So we then went into Tableau Pulse, used what we learned as emerging artists and as music producers to create a new metric from our newly uploaded or newly published data source. And so hope that you were able to learn something new, even if it was just about using the web UI to publish a data source. But really, the main takeaways of section and exercise 3 is that Tableau Pulse requires a published data source on Tableau Cloud. That means that these data sources can be live, extract, connected via bridge, or even a virtual connection. But it works best when the data changes regularly, when there are many dimensions in the data source related to the measure or the metric that you're trying to track, and when it can be filtered for decision making, so pertinent fields for pertinent insights. And all in all, the general idea of this is that if you've put trash data in, you're going to get trash metrics and trash insights out. So think of curating and think of giving Tableau Pulse a good data source to give you good insights.
And so now that we've walked you through our hands-on training session from TC24, we'll walk you through the final piece, which is the Encore, because we know you'll want more after watching this. So in our lab guide, we did provide an extra credit exercise if you wanted to stretch yourself and keep working with different data sets within the music industry. And then we talked a little bit about the Einstein trust layer and where to find additional information, because while we talked a bit about the mechanics of Pulse and how important clean data was, we also need to talk about data security and trust when it comes with AI and all of the different things. So if you want to learn more, I highly encourage you to Google about the Einstein trust layer, read our help documentation, maybe even jump into a Trailhead or reach out to your account team here at Tableau or Salesforce to get more information. We are always happy to talk about our number one value, which is trust. And then I want to talk a little bit about where Pulse can go. So Pulse is data that meets you where you're at. So whether you're logging into the Tableau platform on your desktop or on your mobile, maybe you spend your entire day in Slack and need insights infused into your flow of work there. You can embed Pulse into Teams, dashboards, emails, your customer portal. If you're a Salesforce customer, you can also embed it there. Pulse really does infuse and meet you where you are in your data analytics journey. And so thank you. Thank you so much for watching this session. Thank you for attending TC. Again, if you have any additional questions, comments, feedback, please reach out to your account team. But it was wonderful getting to spend the last time with you here. And so we hope you have a data day. Thank you again. Have a great day.